Okay.
And I'll try to remember cues as well.
Okay. All right. Welcome to Opal Aperture podcast. This is our very first podcast. Basically, we'll get introductions out of the way. My name is George Redwine. I am a music enthusiast and philosophical noob. With me is...
Hello, Mike LeCavalier here. Also, I guess you could call me a philosophical noob. And a working artist. Yes.
Nice. Basically, we decided to start this podcast. I asked Mike if he'd be interested in doing it because we always have very deep philosophical conversations in person and over the interwebs. And I thought it'd be interesting to capture that and try to document it, but also try to get somewhere with it between ourselves. But beyond that, sort of form a community where we can share ideas and thoughts and opinions like that, and kind of encourage people to question everything. And I think I like the angle of us both being very interested in philosophy, but also not self-proclaimed scholars or anything. We're not like trying to be Socrates or anything. So I don't know. I like that. But I guess we should talk about what we intend to do beyond that. I wanted to have like I said, a open philosophical discussion with a dash of a nerd culture in there, just to spice it up. Being anime, video games, comics, and music, as well as literature, movies, I guess, too. But I don't know. Should we describe the name now, or?
Yeah, if you'd like to focus on the meaning of the name prior to the mission statement, I guess they'll just meld into one.
Yeah.
You could go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to come up with something that was kind of simple, and I guess it is simple in a way, but it's kind of weird too. But I like how it stands out. But Opal would refer not really to the gem itself, but the colors of the gem. It's described as an iridescent quality. It's kind of rainbowish, but it's not as it's more subtle than a rainbow. I think it's more sort of dazzling. And then aperture does not refer to camera optics, but refers to the basic meaning as a slit, a crack, or an opening, and we wanted to use that imagery and sort of a multicolored opening into I don't know what, like insight, or into the unknown, and it kind of represents how much we don't know, and trying to get through that opening, I guess. I think we had talked about the keyhole being the imagery of that opening.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think one thing that the whole Opal Aperture, not attempting to sound too much like douchebags, just to promote critical thinking through complex conversations dealing with difficult topics that, let's face it, for the most part, people like to turn away from, but they are intellectually stimulating, and that's hopefully what we promote here through this podcast.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think, I hope it doesn't come off as sounding pretentious or anything, but I think it sounds good. The combinations of words, like, it just rolls off the tongue very easily. Opal Aperture.
Well, let's face it, you want something to sound appealing to an audience. So if you succeed that in one way or another, hopefully if you have a fan base, they'll be able to make their own decision as to whether or not we are jerks or we don't know what the hell we're talking about. We'll leave that up to them.
Yeah, I guess if if someone is so judgmental or superficial that they would just draw a conclusion based on the name alone without even investigating it, then I don't know. That's their loss, I guess. But
do you want to go ahead and now sort of proceed with what your mission statement, I guess, for the show is going to be?
Yeah, I kind of touched upon that. But basically, I mean, personally, I want to draw new conclusions with different topics, because we each spend a amount of time trying to figure out where we stand on certain topics and trying to better ourselves and perhaps get better insight into the world. But if you're just doing it yourself or talking to a few people occasionally and not really getting really deep into it, I feel like you're limiting, or I'm limiting, how much progress I can make. And so I want to use that, or use this as a sort of a tool to dig deeper there. And like I said before, it'd be cool to get a community involved we could have our own forum and just have open discussion, and it could spark new topics for shows and stuff like that, and have get different guests on and stuff like that.
All right. Well, I guess for me, as I'll sort of just segue into now, I'm going to actively be working on different artwork during the course of the show, and hopefully to encourage other people to work on art or music or whatever it is that they do actively. I was talking to George earlier about this. Ever since I've graduated or been through the whole school, I'm completely right mind dominated, and my creativity, I think, has been dwindling. So I'm going to use this as a hopefully as a means to sketch more. This is sort of George from the last time, but now I'm not going to focus on this anymore. I'm now going to be working on the logo for the show, which, as you'll see, it will encompass the ideals of what we hope to achieve on the Opal Aperture.
Definitely. And so you said earlier also that you kind of have trouble getting into the zone when drawing as of late, because it's hard to clear your mind, and so you feel like if you're kind of engaged in a conversation, it helps you to kind of balance the two.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, and it's not this way for all artists, if I am less focused, say, on the piece itself, I'm not going to sit here and critique every little thing that I'm maybe doing wrong, or that I'm not obtaining whatever sort of look or feel that I was trying to grasp, through my work. I'm just enjoying it as opposed to making work out of it, because for the longest time, that's what art has become for me. It's now work, and my passion is sort of dwindling. And I actively want to fight against that, just to retain whatever it is that I loved about it from the start. So if I don't know, if other people are like that, it'd be cool to hear about that. But I know sometimes I'll be doing Skype chat with other artists, and they can't, or we'd go to coffee shops and they wouldn't focus on their art. They'd just be talking deep and talk. So I'm trying to merge the two, because the mind is quite an incredible tool, and we don't often utilize it to its full potential. And at least that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like you were saying, each person is different, so you have to kind of find what works best for you.
Absolutely.
But when you're doing this, are you consciously doing both things, or is the drawing, does that become more subconscious, or is it like?
No, I'd say I'm pretty actively involved in both, and I think I don't fall into the hype that you can only truly be using a certain part of your brain, left or right, to its full potential. I'm sure science can prove me wrong, and that's cool. But for me, I want to fight against that by doing this type of activity, multitasking. Now, it's not always for the best, and oftentimes, you're not going to get the best results because you're not fully invested in what you're doing. But I think there's sort of an aura of like spirituality to art, whether it be music, drawing, any means of personal expression. So you got to find what works best for you to let that out. But yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of another aspect we want to focus on is self-expression in all areas of, like intellectually or artistically, musically, whatever you're feeling at the time, I guess.
Yeah. And for me, the whole purpose of this is just to do it. It doesn't maybe I'm not going to finish a piece in the scope of the show. And I think we're short of shooting for an hour segment, ideally. But, maybe I'm not going to reach my goals. It doesn't matter. I'm still doing something for me, and I think that's important for everybody. And also
it's progress.
Talking with cool people like George. That's important, because a lot of us now, due to the advent of the internet, we're sort of shutting ourselves into our own little worlds, and that's cool. But guess what? Everyone else is sort of a part of this phenomenon, which is the internet, and it's fantastic, and it's connecting so many different people in so many cool different ways, and we definitely want to be a more active part of that. I believe.
I agree. So right now you're working on the banner or the logo of Opal Aperture.
Yes.
And that was I see you're going with the keyhole as being the aperture.
Yeah. Like, I could pull up your Webster's dictionary definition of like the aperture, or I believe off the top of my head, it was just sort of like a lens through which light can travel through, right? So opal having or obtaining like all the color spectrum, right? I believe so. And that reflects through hopefully the conversations we're going to have. So I'm looking at like galaxies. In the end, ultimately, this is just going to be, I'm going to maybe get some photography of the actual opal material and have that be within the keyhole here. But then on the outside, I want sort of galaxies or dark hole, because it's just there's a lot of meaningful different, I guess, topics that can be thread just from looking at galaxies alone and looking from the spin of what's happening out there. And for me, it's just about the beauty of it. It's cool. I'm not, as you'll find out, I'm not the hugest science buff, but it doesn't mean I'm ignorant to it. That's definitely what we're opposed to here, I believe.
Yeah, well, I agree, yeah. With ignorance, though, the basic definition is that it, you're unaware, or it refers to information you don't know. But I think there's something that could be called a willful ignorance, where it's you understand, like you get to a point where it's made apparent that you don't know, but you choose to continue to not know instead of learning whatever it is. And that's actually relates to one of the topics I wanted to have for a future podcast.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, so you believe that, or not believe, but I guess, do you think that ignorance is a choice?
Well, I think it starts out as natural, because we're, each of us is ignorant to something, I'm completely ignorant to pyrotechnics. I don't know the first thing about that. If I I don't know. I guess I mean that's not the greatest example because if I became interested in them, then then I would you know, have you learn about them, and I wouldn't be ignorant about it anymore. But I don't know. I a lot of people, like, if you call someone ignorant, it's usually perceived as a negative thing. It's like you're insulting them.
Mm.
But if you're really just pointing out that they don't know something, then it's not. I don't know why it should be considered negative, but
I think it all has to do with tone. I
oh
mean,
yeah,
but then
yeah,
then again, also the terminology in common English. I mean, no one wants to be called ignorant because it's like a slap in the face. Be like, I'm not ignorant. How dare you? But
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
even if you're like, oh, you're uneducated, sir. They're still gonna be like, well, it's bullcrap.
I guess I mean I guess it's negative to say it at all because it's like if someone were to say to me, you're ignorant about pyrotechnics, I would be like, yeah, that's obvious. I mean, it's kind of a given. It doesn't need to be said.
Mm.
A more positive thing would be like, hey, would you, I could show you something cool about pyrotechnics. I don't know. I'm using that as an example, but just popped in my head.
Well, it works. I mean, how many people know
Yeah,
about it, right? I mean,
yeah. It's kind of like it's not really a common craft.
mm.
But yeah.
And I don't know if it's cool if I point something out here. Today, or frequently, I'd like to have an overhead cam of some live drawing that I'm going to be doing.
Hmm.
I'm trained in Photoshop, all this other 3D stuff that's sort of taken hold of modern art. But I do wish to continue the traditional basics of it because even the masters, a lot of them they'll do their traditional workup and then they'll move on to the computer aspect of things. But I didn't quite have that set up, but it doesn't matter because this is working out quite conveniently.
Yeah, this is cool too. I totally support the physical drawing too, though, because it kind of relates to what you were talking about earlier of the sort of the disconnect of kind of getting shut in, but like more you were referring to like getting shut in and like or shut out from other people, but I think we also kind of get like shut out from ourselves, like at least with experiencing reality. I don't know, because when you're on a computer, it's sort of a different reality. It's kind of a whole different world. Things are completely different.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so I guess is there anything else you wanted to add about the mission statement or about? I guess we got through that, and then we.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have a few topics on hand, like maybe that we brought up earlier, and well, it'd be nice to have a meet and greet. Maybe we'll devote an episode to introductions, unless George, you're opposed to doing sort of a about you, music background, and whatnot. Now.
Um. No, not opposed to it. Just in general, or.
Yeah, just give them a little bit about who is George Wedwine. And why the hell should they listen to us?
Well, they should. People should tune in because it's two charismatic individuals, sharing thoughts and ideas that relate to everyone. I think. But for me, I love music, and and a lot of people do, and it's really great. And I don't feel like I'm better at liking music, if that makes any sense or anything. But I have noticed that I'm a little more, or perhaps a bit more obsessive. Well, not obsessive, but it consumes my life, really. So and other people, they have other things that consume their life. And I listen to music, and I will just listen to music. Like it's not, I use it for background when I'm working and stuff, but like ambiance. But I will, like, even earlier today, I was just sitting at my computer, just listening to music. That's and just examining it, and it's really fun. I love learning new things about it and getting into new bands and kind of exploring discographies and just and I like having all that useless information, like what year an album was released or what songs are called and little tidbits about fun facts, trivia, and stuff like that.
That's cool. And George is definitely selling himself short. I'll just say because he has an extremely healthy appreciation for music in general and not just one genre like many people that you'll meet, which sort of rubs you the wrong way about music. He's got a healthy appreciation for so many different types, and I wouldn't have heard the type of music or been exposed to the great stuff that's influenced my life, such as Andy McKee or Antoine Dufour,
Mm.
which are acoustic guitar artists. If you haven't heard of them, it would be our mutual suggestion, I believe, to check them out because they're flipping amazing. And yeah, he's definitely, I'd say, he's a great resource for a wide range of music. So,
Well, thank you. I'm flattered.
You're quite welcome.
Although I guess with Andy McKee anyway, I'm sure most people our age who have a computer are familiar with drifting, since it has so many million views. Like my mom wasn't familiar, but I don't know. I have to imagine like anybody in their 20s and 30s is at least somewhat familiar.
That's the thing about the internet, though. It is huge. It is so vast. I mean, and not everybody likes guitar. Let's face it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I feel kind of bad because I listen to so much guitar music. Like I've been listening to a lot of bass-driven music lately, but for the longest time, like everything was guitar, and I was like, I don't know, my last girlfriend like hated guitars, and so that was it was kind of an eye opener for me. I was like, well, I hate guitars. That's like my world.
Would you say that because you've listened to so much guitar, it's made you jaded towards?
Yeah, I think so. Because when I hear new bands now, and if it's guitar driven, it has to be pretty special. Like, I don't know, it's not so. It doesn't. I don't know. It has to be really creative. Actually, and I've noticed like when listening to like piano driven stuff, which I've listened to a little bit of, but nowhere near as much as guitar. Like that, I'm finding so much stuff that's just blowing me away, and so I guess I'm kind of a. I don't know, kind of a virgin in that aspect. But I'll probably get jaded with that eventually.
All right. Well, if it's cool, maybe I'll give him a little backdrop on me and stuff.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so George and I both come from around a place, I should say, Payson, Arizona. And let's just say it's not the most open-minded of places. And so grew up in a farm country place, but I drew like constantly. That's all I did. Sort of a quiet kid, which I'm not anymore. And I would just draw constantly. It was sort of my means to escape. And then, you get educated into, well, the world works like this. You got to have your degrees. You got to have good contacts. You got to do this, blah, 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 blah. And so after getting exposed to all the bullshit, a few years later, I come to find myself as working as the art assistant for Todd McFarlane on, cool comics like Spawn and Haunt. And then, of course, we had like DC, so you had to see all sorts of neat stuff. And a lot of people wouldn't even know. It's like I didn't even draw American style comics. I was sort of influenced through anime, once again by this cool cat George over here. And this stuff really, it blew my mind. Just the adult themed topics or ideals that some of these great shows propose, or just their spin on the modern universe, as it were. But anyways, I went on to graduate, and hopefully I'm not trying to sound pretentious, I'm just giving background. I went on to graduate as valedictorian in my class, and I went and I taught in Japan, and I'm so cool. I pulled off so much stuff. Yeah. Anyone can do the crap that I've done because now I'm in debt. So you can do anything if you open yourself up to the wolves, and sell your soul for a little bit. Now I'll probably go into more of where I'm at now and what I've done later, but my art education has been vast, and my God, have I paid the price for it. So I'll put it like that.
Your memories are priceless, though, right? I mean, you can't.
Oh, I mean, memories for sure. And memories they're important.
I'd like to. I'm sure we'll be talking about this more later, but about money and about debt and about how stupid it is.
Yeah.
It's imaginary numbers just weighting us down, hanging over our heads.
Yeah, it'd be very cool when we get into the talks about money, but those are.
It'll probably be multiple podcasts.
Yeah, that's coming.
Indeed.
But anyways, back to this.
I was gonna say though, you influenced me with anime too. It wasn't. I don't deserve all the credit there because we were both into anime when we met in high school. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, it needs to record needs to be set straight.
Yes, but I'll say this much. I think we can both thank the peoples or the early adopters of the internet craze and just sharing what's cool, because how could we ever have been exposed to stuff like Evangelion? I mean, at the time, otherwise, I didn't even have cable for years. We had the Andy Griffith Show playing on reruns. It's like there's only so much influence you can get. But maybe if you're all right with that, I'd like to sort of go off on this tangent about just small town America and this sort of class system it places you within. Because I think, and I don't want to go on a pedestal, but we do not want to be PC on this show. We want to be very open in our discussions. So,
exactly.
It's all well and good to be hardworking American and, ass busting, get the job done. We need that. But my God, is there some ignorance and intolerance and just some absolute stupidity that will enable or disable, I should say, some really great intellectuals from ever, I guess, reaching their potential if you're raised in a place like BFE, Arizona. I love Arizona. And I wish to go back. But what do you think about that, George?
I think there's a lot of truth in that. I don't know. It's like it kind of. It's sort of like a double-edged sword, and I use that expression a lot, double-edged sword. So just watch out for it.
It's
but
cool.
Anyway, because I've recently from living down in Phoenix, which is a huge city, I recently moved back up to Payson, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate how slow everything moves. Like when you drive into town, it's it's at a crawl speed, and it's like, and I used to hate that when we went to high school. It was like, God, hurry up, let's get a move on. But now that I've lived in a city, it's like it's refreshing. It's like it's nice. It's kind of it's a different pace. I don't know, and it's more relaxing. And I don't know if it's just that I'm getting older, or if that the contrast of it was just so. So inviting, but with that, I think having that slowness, people I don't know. It's something about small towns. There's a lot of judgmental people, but it's in the air. There's a lot of gossip. My mom owns a hair salon, which is like, you know, gossip central, and it seems like hair salons are the worst in small towns because everybody knows everyone, which is an exaggeration, but if they don't know you, it's like, it's like you're not. I don't know, and they judge you based on that. It's very interesting. I'm constantly hearing my mom, talk about the latest, gossip or something, and she's not very gossip oriented, but she can't escape it. She has to be in the middle of it. But
Yeah.
and you compare that down in the valley because you can, or in a big city, you go into a store and the odds of you running into someone are very low. It almost never happens. But when you're in a small town, you go to Walmart or wherever, and you're going to see someone most likely, depending on how long you've lived there and if your family lives there and all that. But
Well, the reason I brought that up is just because I've been on exposure overload for the past few years, being out and about and out of my comfort zone, out of my element a lot of times, and you just see things, and some of the things are unsettling, some of them are disturbing, and I think I'm just referring to the overall education level here in the States because. And no, I'm trying to be unbiased. I'm stating an observation that we have a huge dynamic in the populace here in the United States of all different nationalities, all different peoples. And so what we don't have, though, is, I guess, a sense of united or combined nationalism or pride because it is so diverse and you have so many different peoples coming in and out of the United States. It's almost like it's not even a melting pot anymore. It's just a stationing. So people get here and get out when you're done. But why America? What are you talking about? I'm gonna be foreign. And it's important to state this stuff because America's changing very rapidly.
Indeed.
And it's who knows if it's bad, who knows if it's good. Well, I'm sure educated people know. And we encourage you to please leave comments so that we can do some research and get some really profound discussions going here. But yeah, just my overall viewpoint. See a lot of people here make their money and get out.
Yeah. And I think, this will lead into the zeitgeist movement, but I really am excited by a resource-based economy, which would do away with money as we know it, and because you imagine if you take money out of the equation, a lot of the things that we do and a lot of the ways that exist now would completely be unnecessary. It wouldn't. I don't know. You would. It seems exciting to me because you would kind of look at the world very differently if you didn't have to make money. If you.
Oh, amen.
Yeah. So and I think a lot of people are stuck in that. Like people who, I believe everyone is an artist at some level in some way. But I think a lot of. I mean, I hate to generalize, but it sounds like a lot, or it seems like a lot of people in America, at least. They kind of suppress that artistic notion as sort of a sacrifice for making money and like consuming themselves with it, and so they work their 40-hour a week or more, and they earn a bunch of money, and they raise their kids, but then that's it. Then there's nothing beyond that. Whereas when you embrace that artistic side, you're doing that so you can embrace your art, so you can be artistic and you can express yourself. So it's, and that's what you look at that as like an obstacle of,
Could you do people a favor, maybe bring some folks up to speed on what the zeitgeist movement sort of, at least what it encompasses, what it sort of is.
What it is. Yeah, I'm no expert by any means. Well, I'd heard about it, but you were the one that introduced me or prompted me to watch the third movie, which is the only one I've seen so far, but it seems to be the most important one because in that movie, in the latter half of it, they sort of it's basically a documentary where they talk a lot about societal concerns and sort of how bad things are, and that's the first half. But in the latter half, they propose a system in which the world could work more efficiently, and they push efficiency very much, like very strongly, and which I like because anything that involves making money, in commercialism or capitalism, I should say, is inefficient. It's they engineers and companies, they have the engineers make these these objects or products, whatever. They make them have a limited lifespan, because they need to be able to make more money in the future. They need to keep the ball rolling. And on the podcast London Real, which you also got me into, it's a recent not a recent one podcast, but recently you told me to check out this podcast. It was an interview with Miles Dyer, who's sort of an internet activist or of the like. But I remember he said something about the first light bulbs that were invented would last like hundreds of years, but they had to change that because that's not a very sound business idea. But anyway, so the Zeitgeist proposes what they call a resource-based economy, which would basically what they propose through hydroponics and through what is it, the vertical farming? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, which is it's like towers of farms with different levels, and so you save a lot of space in doing that. It's no longer based on a simple acreage of just one level, but you have all this, and then the hydroponics is based on water basically. But and I'm not exactly sure how it works, but there's like a level of water, and the plants kind of float on top of that. And
yeah, it's the nutrients that they need. They used to draw them from the soil. Well, now we can just inject the minerals and what they need directly into the water, and they soak it up.
We don't even need soil at this point.
Mm.
And so through those two things, they want to focus on those to feed the world, basically. And they talk about there's machines now that can, like sort of AI machines that can build anything. That can build a house from scratch, and that would it would do away with a lot of the labor that we have to do now.
Well, I mean, really, if I put my 2 cents in there, what it's going towards is that the ideal that everyone said, back early 1900s, 1950s, they're like, soon, the physical workforce is going to be replaced by robots, machines, and slowly but surely that's progressively happening. And they're just finding that, well, now what do you do with the workforce? And people like those behind the Zeitgeist movement or the Venus Project, they are proposing ideas for the human race that take people into concern. That people actually matter. That without people, there's not really much of a point. And at the end of the day, it's compassion for your fellow man, which is driving these great innovators. It's not even that they're innovators. The guy behind the Venus Project, forgive me, he's like a 95-year-old man. He's just rocking it all the time, coming up with these great ideas, and it's hardcore. He believes in what he's doing, and he might not even see the result of his labor in his life, but he's still doing it, and that's awesome.
Dedicated.
Yeah.
And I think it's I want to ask people, and anyone listening to this, ask yourself, if whatever job you have now, the way in which you make money at this current moment, if you didn't have to make money, would you still do it? Like, is there really any love there? And for me, the answer is no, I wouldn't, because I work in insurance, insurance collecting specifically. So
Mm.
yeah, there's no way I'm going to continue that. But without money, a lot of industries wouldn't even be necessary, such as insurance, I think,
Mm.
because it's really just a money-making scheme to begin with.
Well, the whole movement with the Obamacare, this is not, hopefully it's not an objective viewpoint. It's just fact is that, the insurance companies are now going to be financed through the government, through taxes with Obamacare. So it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah,
And I think it's sort of the wrong direction. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of theory going on out there. Hopefully people benefit from this. Like my nephew, who prior, maybe he'd be refused his diabetic needs because of pre-existing condition and all this other stuff. And a lot of people, there's like people just dying left and right because of crap like this, because insurance can refuse you the help that you need, which is sick. But once again, it's the whole people behind the Zeitgeist Movement, Venus Project. They care about people, and it's awesome because there's a lot of people suffering. So
indeed.
needlessly, mind you. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Mm.
I remember on the Zeitgeist documentary, though, they were talking about healthcare, and they're talking about all the money that's spent on it, and it's a lot. I don't remember the exact figures, but it's, a lot of money. And so we'll look at that and go, wow, we're saving lives, but a lot of that money, which they point out, is used to sort of prolong or stave off death, rather, because of people that are elderly, and in hospice or stuff like that, which is a very touchy subject. But it's just interesting because usually when you think of healthcare, you think of people living, people getting better and getting healthier. But the vast majority of it is people getting progressively worse till they die. And it's kind of like a sweet caress off into the black night. It's which I would be an interesting topic. It's kind of it's something we've talked about before, definitely. But
it is scary, and other different societies do different things. Let's just say it with their elderly, and I from back from college when I was nearly could have gotten associates in theology. They were talking about what I believe it's the Hindu people do, or it could even be Muslim. I believe it's Hindu. They have these great temples, right, where if you're homeless or all the community, they can come and eat, and then a lot of people they'll either wash dishes, cook, or serve, and it's just sort of a cycle that people go through, and people can come and get a meal. Well, they have a similar thing where if someone's elderly, they acknowledge it's their time. They don't want to burden their family anymore, and they sort of wander off into the wilderness. Well, it would seem so, but they have temples there, or I should say, I don't want to call them churches, but what have you out there, where there's people, volunteering their time to take care of the elderly while they pass on. And in China, they have sort of a movement where it's almost more of a celebration, especially because some of these people live on for ages, and they want to go on to the next big thing. They have a different view on death, because here in America it's such a morbid, drawn out, sad, awful affair. You're going to lose your loved one to this illness or what have you. And it just goes on forever, and it takes a lot out of everybody involved. Now you can't really avoid death. I know that a lot of people think they can, but I think we just change our viewpoints on it. And I'm a huge proponent. I'm a backer of spirituality and just coming to terms with oneself, and just milking the joy out of life, and even death.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you embrace life, you should also embrace death. When it comes. I mean, it's kind of it's all part of the package. It's can't have one without the other. So it's But I wanted to say though, with what you're talking about with the Hindu culture, like I have this theory that it's something that's prevalent in the West, Western world. But when somebody gets old and they start to get ill and like they're on their deathbed per se,
Mm.
all their loved ones rush to them and they give them support. They're by them and they want to. I mean, usually that's how it works. I mean, unless of course I don't have any loved ones, but you know, and it seems good. It's heartwarming. It's endearing. It's like you're there for me, but what can you really do? But here's my theory. Spirituality. I believe in aura and everyone having an aura, and so I think when you go to someone's deathbed and you provide this positive aura and this like life-giving energy, you're kind of helping them stay alive, which is kind of good. But if their time has come, you're kind of sort of going against nature. You're kind of tipping the scales. It's if you're already sort of crippled or decrepit or dying or in a state of of death, in a downward sort of slope, it's kind of any push back up is going to be futile, I think. But
I mean, you do have a point there. If you provide any sort of means or a continuation of life, someone is going to cling on. I totally believe in strength of determination of will, because if you don't want to give up, guess what? You don't have to. That's just like life. If you don't want to do something, the beautiful thing about this life is you don't have to at any point in time. You just change direction and do something completely different.
yeah,
And it's something that you're not often. It's not often reinforced. Like in Japan, they say the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. It's the same anywhere you go, really. I mean, then again, I haven't been everywhere, so.
Yeah, it's. I guess it's hard sometimes to. I don't know. We make our opinions and our viewpoints based on the information we have. But no one person can be expected to know everything or to be completely cultured or what have you. So, but
Yeah, we can strive for education. You strive, but like I said myself, these days it's almost like because of the internet and because of amazing podcasts and news resources and the slow but sure transparency that seems to be coming, which I'm all about. I'm almost on information overload a lot, and it's sort of hard to ground yourself when you can get your opinion sort of not completely altered but updated so frequently. It's education's a great thing, but man, it's good to just sort of take a breath and contemplate and just breathe and focus, because sometimes this exposure to these really outlandish and world-changing ideas, sometimes it's a bit too much to take, and you can just dwell on it for so long, both the bad and the good. You can let it consume you. So, and maybe if you're cool with this, George, I'll sort of do my my hello or shout out, as they call it, to say Brian Rose and Nick Gabriel, even though he's no longer there on that show. Really, he's a part of it at London Real, because I wrote, and I'm not saying that this will happen for everybody, nor do I encourage you to do so, but let's say I had communication with Brian Rose, and he actually encouraged me to start a podcast, as well as many other amazing, crazy things. And this sort of happened. I call it serendipity, because George here was wanting to do it, and it was almost as if the universe is calling out. So I responded, and I'm having fun. Darn it, I'm having fun, and I'm sketching.
Yes.
Kind of cool.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, I don't know what your beliefs are on fate, but meant to be. Sort of kismet,
Hmm.
sort of a I don't know. It's like if you let it in, and if it seems natural, and it just happens, then you know, then that's probably the best course of action to take.
Yeah, I have not saved in a while. For all you artists out there, save your work, my Buddha. I need to. I need to set up a auto save feature. I don't use this computer much. It's a shame. I built this beast a while ago, and only now I'm finding real good use for it.
I'm really bad at saving my progress on RPG video games. Uh, very bad. Go.
Yeah,
But
I've given up on games completely because of stuff like that. You get to this boss and then you die and you realize you're like, did I just spend a day?
yeah,
Is that day gone?
yep, yep, yeah. I know that feeling. I mean, if the game is interesting enough to me, I'll go back to it. But I need a couple of years to really,
Yeah.
because
Can
you're never going to get that back. I mean, you're never going to get it back even if you save. But if you don't save, it's very sad.
can you name a game in which you remember that happening to you?
Well, it happened kind of recently. It happened. It was actually a couple of years ago now. But it's a game that I've played off and on, but I've never really like gotten my hands dirty. But it's a Secret of Evermore for
Hmm.
Super Nintendo.
Hmm.
Because when I was in second grade, I had a Super Nintendo, and I had the regular, Super Mario World and Mario Paint and Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I had all those, but it was kind of the extent of what I had. But I had a friend at the time whose mom worked at our school, and I don't know how or why, but somebody gave her these two new games for Super Nintendo, and they didn't have a Super Nintendo, so they gave them to me. And one of them was Chrono Trigger, which had a huge impact on my life. But the other one was Secret of Evermore, and I always loved it. It's a really cute game, but it's also pretty adventurous, and it's sort of like a action adventure RPG, much like The Legend of Zelda.
Hmm.
I don't know if have you ever played it?
I have not. I have not played Secret of Evermore.
No, it's cool. It's cool. A fun fact about it is it was the soundtrack to it was scored by what's his name? I can't remember his name, but he's the same guy that has done the soundtrack for all the Morrowind games. The
Really?
Oblivion, yeah. So it's kind of interesting that he's still around doing stuff.
Hmm.
But it's a really cool soundtrack. That's usually what really gets me in a game. If it has an amazing soundtrack, then I mean, I may not play it a lot, but I'll certainly listen to it.
I think that, and I'm gonna come back here because I may not finish all the pieces while we're talking. I'll sketch it up and I'll continue later, but I'll just come back here.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can. What? So I think that's safe to say with any sort of, I don't know, whether it be a video game or a movie, if it has the complete package, you can have visually stunning effects, but man, if you don't have a solid score to accompany that, it's close but not quite there.
Yeah.
So I hear you, man. Final Fantasy VI. I mean, that music sticks with me to this day. And Final Fantasy VI is the equivalent of George's Chrono Trigger. For me, that one.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, if you look at like the two top RPGs for Super Nintendo of that era, those two, that's it. That's they were like definitive of RPGs back in 1995 or whatever.
Mm.
I mean, there was other ones. You had like Lufia and what else was there? I don't know. I'm drawing a blank.
But I mean, I don't know if people would call this necessarily
Breath of Fire.
an RPG. Breath of Fire was there, but Secret of Mana, amazing.
Oh yeah, Secret of Mana, that totally counts. Yeah,
Really amazing.
and even Legend of Zelda was really big, but I mean Legend of Zelda is an RPG, but it's it's an action adventure, so it's all you fight in real time, and so I think of it differently than the third person RPG. But I guess that's sort of I don't know.
Yeah.
They're still they're both RPGs, right? So
it's back to what we were talking about earlier. Games that really got me. I can name two off the top of my head because I eventually came back and beat them. But one was Xenosaga. It was a secret. It was a secret boss you didn't even have to beat. I came in through I crawled up through this window in some random town, and some dark freaking robot angel came down, and she's like, "I will murder you." Had a character in my party, and I left that game for a year, and then because I could not kill this person, and it frustrated me so bad. And then that was also Chrono Trigger. There's another boss. I go to the peak of this mountain, and there's this rock dragon guy or rock robot. I don't remember, but it frustrated me so bad. And now this might be a good segue into other things. Games are almost being modified to adhere to the skill level or the difficulty of the modern generation, which is nothing. You got games that maybe last 5 hours, and then you play the online thing, which everybody wastes their life doing. You don't have this solid, difficult content. Where that's why we played games before. They were difficult. They challenged us to think in different ways, and I believe that it inspired intelligence. Not only that, some of the dialogue. I was a kid, but I wanted to know what was going on, and so it threw me into it. It wasn't just hacks / explosion. Let's just say what it is: big titties, because sex sells. In Japan, we all know you do it, and you do it well. But it wasn't just that. They were challenging, and you had to develop on your own, because the internet was not as fast or as amazing as it was. And early 90s. What was it? 95 is really when I think the internet started taking off more. But I think we're sounding like old men here. But I've played enough games now to know that the challenging games still exist, such as Dark Souls stuff. Give that a shot. You just if you've ever played Super Ghouls and Ghosts,
nice.
That one's gonna have you. Yeah, they're gonna have you smashing your head in the wall because you're like, I will beat this game. I will not. Do you hear me? I will not give up. But anyways.
And Catherine is a more recent. Pretty challenging.
Catherine's amazing. I love it. Oh man! But we're winding down here. I'd say we got about a few minutes left. Is there anything else you'd really want to just say? Why people should care?
Well, this is this is an intro. This is kind of this is sort of what it'll be like, but. I mean, it is what it'll be like, but it'll be more focused because we'll have certain topics to discuss. I mean, but it's this is sort of an icebreaker, introduction to us, and so expect next time for it to be a little different. I think a little more deep. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's going to be topic driven, and George and I can go off on topics and on tangents about so many stuff. So many stuff. Yeah, great English there. You could just say one thing: money, politics, religion, women.
Yes, relationships.
Relationships, yeah. Friends.
And those are big topics. In those subtopics, there's endless. It's interesting stuff. But on that note, do you think we should sort of set the topic for next week? If we come up with it now, be on our minds until then, and then we'll hit it.
I have one, unless you have something in mind, because mine's just.
Well, we both have a list, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know. Somebody starts, and then we just keep going. I don't.
Well, I'll give you the honors, because without George, the show would not be happening. Sort of let the world kick me around sometimes. So.
Hey, I'm guilty of that too. if you want to, I mean, I certainly will oblige you.
Thank you. Thank you, good sir.
Um, I don't know if I should just go down my list or if I should pick ones that are um,
Well, it'd be neat if we could
so,
provide enough things ahead of time to have people like vote on if we created sort of an interactive thing.
that'd
However,
be cool.
that will be later on if we propose such things. For
Yeah,
now, we'll
we
just do.
need some listeners first.
Amen. And as I think George and I both have learned, and this is cruel. I'm sure anyone who's played Rock Band knows. They said your mom doesn't count as a fan. So we'll get there.
Nice. I guess I'll start at the top of my list. The first one is it's the relationship between responsibility and money in society. And kind of the role that responsibility plays in relationship to money. So that's it.
That's a big one. That's a big one, but a good one. So
Nice.
yeah. Well, I guess I will just say, whoever tuned in, thanks for listening. Opal Aperture is a work in progress, and as are George and myself.
Yes, and probably everyone in existence, I imagine. Hopefully,
Mm.
but stay tuned for brilliance. That's all I have to say.
All right.
Cool.
Peace.